I spoke to the Executive Director of UNAIDS. He explained how China has contributed to the UN's goal of eradicating HIV by the year 2030.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
The world is changing fast, taking all our lives with it. But we can change it too, by seeking answers to problems through discussions and debates. On World Insight, I ask direct questions to real people in the know, seek genuine answers, but respect diverse perspectives. Our live global debates tackle the most critical issues head-on. World Insight with Tian Wei go beyond the headlines.
You are watching World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. The program comes to you Monday to Friday on CGTN. The global community is at a defining moment in the effort to end the HIV/AIDS by the year 2030, and this year marks the halfway point to the agreed global targets. The report of the United Nations Secretary General shows that while the number of people getting treatment almost tripled from 2010 to 2017, from around 8 million people to 21 million, 15.8 million people are still left out. China has launched a national AIDS campaign in recent years. By the end of 2017, China had almost stopped the spread of HIV through blood transfusion, hypodermic needles, and childbirth. AIDS has presented Professor Peng Liyuan, the First Lady of China, with UNAIDS Award for Outstanding Achievement in recognition of remarkable contribution to the global response to HIV. As an advocate of the zero new HIV infections, zero discrimination, and zero AIDS-related deaths vision, UNAIDS Executive Director Michel Sidibe hailed China's efforts on HIV prevention. I had a chance to talk to him, and he shared his experience on fighting against AIDS. Tell me about the commitments you made 2009. Have they finished to a certain extent?
I think 2009 was a critical year for all of us. We were thinking how we will be able to put more people on treatment.
You committed 000.
And 000 was a very important vision for the simple reason it was about social justice. It was about leaving no one behind, making sure that every single person could benefit from innovation, from discovery, from science. And today I can say that we are not there. We are not yet there, but we can be there. Today we have been able to break the backbone of this epidemic. For the first time, we have more people on treatment than people waiting for treatment. And we are seeing more and more countries telling us that they will not have babies born with HIV anymore.
Even as a Red Ribbon ambassador myself, I've been working with our colleagues from around the country in order to go into universities and bring more sex education. Having said that, though, Mr. Sidibe, what about the drugs? I mean, all over the world, we understand the price of drugs for treatment of HIV/AIDS has been a long problem.
I think in global level, we have been able really to make a big change. Because if you remember, we were used to pay this medicine $15,000 per person per year. Today, we're talking about, globally, it's around $75 per person per year, which is a huge transformation. It's an innovation, is a partnership, is also the fact that people have been working closely with communities, scientists, to help us to change the regimen of this whole treatment.
But you do have problems with some of the key groups. For example, young women around the world, what to do with them?
No, we need to make sure first that our leaders can understand that we cannot not keep them at school. Not keeping them at school is terrible. We have experience in Malawi, documented by World Bank, showing clearly that if you give only $10, I said $10,
only $10
cash assistance every month to poorest girls who are living in poorest family to stay at school, you can reduce dropout from school by 40%, you can reduce infection by 60%, and you can reduce early marriage. So we need to have a political commitment for keeping girls at school.
There's lack of commitment by some countries toward international mechanism. There's lack of commitment to multilateralism for some time. There's lack of confidence that the UN system would be able to fix some of the biggest problems, AIDS included, of the world. You also heard the countries withdraw from some of the important UN mechanisms or organizations.
The world today I'm very scared about it because I'm seeing growing isolationism. I'm seeing growing unilateralism. And I want to say, you cannot resolve any problems in today's world if you don't bring multilateralism at the center. You cannot do it alone. I just came from South Sudan. It was, you know, we were all hoping that South Sudan will be the peaceful countries, that we will transform completely South Sudan. And today we are faced with a huge crisis. The armed forces are contributing to 43% of the new infection in South Sudan. So, through what? Through certainly violence against women. Through what? So it's impossible to resolve the peace process in South Sudan if we don't bring all the players around the table, if we don't engage multilateralism in a different way.
Meanwhile, you also see some developed economies. If I could just put out a word there, the United States, for example, Florida, the state of Florida, they have seen a huge rise of the number of HIV infections as a result of the policies they have within the state, as also a result what they consider as the migrants and the immigrants. So how do you see developed economies, unlike before, as we believe, developing countries alone, but rather developed economies now are seeing new rise of the HIV/AIDS epidemic cases?
I think we need really to address vulnerability. And unfortunately, those vulnerable communities, I'm not talking too much about vulnerable, fragile states. I'm talking about fragile communities. And those fragile communities, you find them from Baltimore to Bamako. And we need to have a society which is more inclusive. Society which will not have 70 countries with homophobic laws. Societies which will not exclude people for who they are or from where they are coming from. But society which will really understand that without building bridges between people, you will not be able to have a stability. You will not have a peace.
China's situation some years ago was not optimistic at all when it comes to HIV/AIDS. But now it seems things have been put on track, whether it's prevention or treatment. So is there something that China can provide to the rest of the world?
I think China can provide a lot. Let me just say that when I came here in 2009 and even before, it was zero tolerance for people who were injecting drugs. Zero tolerance. Today, China has been able to put in place one of the biggest programs of harm reduction. And I have been visiting sites where people who inject drugs don't have any more HIV. They are not transmitting any more HIV.
How is that being done?
It's done through leadership. I think what we need to understand is that when you have a practical leadership with a vision for the people, and they are making mechanisms with clear policies and programs to reach people where they are, you change it. So that's one example. But what I want also to say about China is that China is, for me, a powerhouse of innovation. I learned from the barefoot experience of China.
The barefoot doctors.
Barefoot doctors. Yeah. Today, probably they are not they're wearing shoes. But just to say, in Sierra Leone, yes, we have one doctor for 53,000 people. So if you have emerging Ebola, it's difficult to control. And this experience of barefoot doctors translated into community health worker can be an excellent way to really reinforce the interface with people.
When you talk about leadership, you see our First Lady, Professor Peng Liyuan, I'm sure is one example. You see her very low-key in a way, trying to work on the agenda as much as possible to the extent that she can. I just wonder, how is UNAIDS now working with Professor Peng and some of the other key members of China's advocacy group?
Professor Peng is probably, like you described, low-key, but very effective.
Yes.
Very effective. And she is working with passion for people.
What do you mean by passion?
Passion means what? Going to people who are completely forgotten, and making sure that she can really be their voice, influence policymakers by advocating for them, making sure that stigma, discrimination were so important issues in our society, respective societies, dealing with those difficult issues, trying to remove those, but not just working from China and in China, but trying to work with other first ladies. I saw her with African first ladies. I saw her bringing an orphan from Africa and trying to give them space, hope.
China and some of the other developing countries have been contributing to provide some solutions. How is that working now on a global basis?
What China can really bring in the future, from my point of view, is the partnership with Africa, making sure that we can completely help African regulatory system, and we are doing that already with the Gate Foundation, bringing countries to better understand what is happening here and how we can really work together to reinforce the regulatory system of our African countries, a regulatory system, drugs management, and also making sure that we can go progressively for accessing to better medicine, low prices, affordable, but producing also locally the medicine which are not under patent.
On a global basis, on country basis as well, there are certain issues that are still culturally sensitive in some countries.
Yes.
So in a way, you have to work with the governments,
yes,
to make them aware and also work on these issues, but
yeah,
at the same time, you have to also respect
yes,
their each traditions, sovereignty, cultures as well. How do you balance it?
I think for me, if you want really to confront people and make them feeling that what they're doing is wrong, you will never win with people. Because you need to make people understand with the fact, with the data, with the strategic information, that their people could be left behind, that they should not discriminate their own people. They should think about the dignity of those people who are not part of the process. Saying that human rights should be respected, because I personally believe that when you have a violence against women, when you have a rape, you could be in Mali or in China or in New York. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. We should have norms and laws which protect them. We should make sure that people are not excluded from their right to go to school, excluded from their right to have access to health services.
Right.
You have my health is my right.
Were there frustrating moments for you?
Oh, yes. Yes.
How did you deal with them?
I think for me, I just say time is important. When you're frustrated, come back again. Never stop. Continue to advocate. But sometimes you need to give time.
You have to demonstrate your passion about your cause wherever you go. For example, right now, you're doing exactly it.
You know, I was in Lesotho. I was sitting. It was a great meeting with civil society, like I will have now. A lady is sitting near to me. She was 45. And she told me, you know, Mr. Sidibe, when I was 28, I have been going through forcibly sterilization because I was HIV positive. They took out of me all my reproductive right. And today I'm suffering. Medicine is there. I could have a baby born without HIV. But I am happy to contribute to help others to not go through the same. When I'm meeting this lady, not having any real power, but the power of her passion, I said, you cannot not be passionate about what you're doing. When I met this man in Abuja, coming to see me and saying, you know, you met me when I was almost dying. And now, look at, I have 3 children. Thanks to global solidarity, thanks that I have access to medicine, those children now are going to school and I'm back to in my life. I cannot say that I cannot have passion for what I'm doing.
You got a lot of different organizations, whether it's intergovernmental organizations like the UN or private organizations, international organizations as well, NGOs. How do you envision UNAIDS' role in this big landscape? It seems that everybody is doing a lot of work.
I think UNAIDS is a unique model in the UN system. It's the only organization with non-state actors sitting in our board, challenging us, making us thinking about everyday people. And for me, that is the beauty of what we have been able to do, is to bring scientists, to bring a private sector, innovation, and making civil society voice the driving force for the transformation, and having government sitting in the leading role to transform all of that, to take advantage of this knowledge we're sharing to advance the cause of humanity by helping poor people to have access to services.
Mr. Sidibe, what a pleasure to see you once again. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Insight CGTN into your search engine or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone at the World Insight team, thanks for watching. Tune in again next time for insights across China and around the world. Have a great weekend.